We all agree that there's money being wasted in government, and we were for the idea of Doge, but you said they're only doing it for power. How is what they're doing for power? Because it seems like they're just focusing on cutting down expenditures so they have something that can be like, look, we saved all this money. But how is it a power play?
Because it makes everything, because they're not going through the regular, like any kind of process where you have to like check with Congress or evaluate which of the programs are actually doing something and which ones aren't, or which people are good at their jobs and which aren't. It means all that really matters is whether you're on the White House's good side. And
so if you're on the White House's good side, it sends the message basically, be on our good side, we won't clip your program. That is one way of interpreting it, for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah. And they're doing this with everything. The tariffs are like this.
Of course.
Right? In the end, if your company or your country or your industry gets on his good side, then you get out. That has nothing to do with whether it's good economic policy or whether it's going to help, my neighbors in Michigan, but it is something that helps consolidate power, right? Law firms. He's sending this message like, if your law firm doesn't get on my good side, then you're going to be screwed, because we're going to use, even though it's completely illegal, we're going to, manipulate your access to security clearances or anything else because I don't like you.
Isn't that what Biden did to Mayor Adams, though, when he was just trying to get some upgrades?
No, I would argue the opposite is true. I would argue what happened was, and I know he was just sitting in here talking about this.
He just wants some upgrades, dude. He wants to build a 24-hour strip club.
Everybody wants upgrades. I get it.
That's way better than a Second Avenue subway if you want to talk about holes people can hang on.
But what really happened is...
This is why they don't come off.
A little different than Fox News, right?
No, think about what it means if you get caught or accused of, like in his case, being mixed up with a foreign government and making policy decisions based on that.
Being a politician.
And but that can't be how low our expectations are.
That's how we all look at.
Hold on. But
politicians.
Pete, during your time as the Secretary of Transportation, right? Did nobody try to bribe you or anything? Like there was no.
If I got an upgrade,
how'd you keep the planes in the air? What'd you do?
If I got an upgrade, and by the way, not because the Turkish government liked me, but like because I was a frequent flyer on United or whatever.
Yeah.
If I got an upgrade, I would have my security detail go to the gate agent and negotiate the downgrade, so I didn't have to deal with, not because there was a rule about it, but so I didn't have to deal with like a bunch of people on Twitter saying like, look at this asshole in first class.
I'll take all your upgrades.
You're better than me, bro.
If you know your global services, I'm not.
That's crazy. Pete, come on now.
And don't get me wrong, I love
You're
the
doing
upgrade.
downgrades and trying to build a Second Avenue subway. You're making horrible decisions, bro. People do not relate to this stuff right here, Pete. Who gets a downgrade on Delta or United?
Because I don't want people to ask. I'm regulating airlines. I shouldn't be like up there. Now I take the upgrade. Just I will take the
private sector.
I love the upgrade.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is not about upgrades. This is about whether somebody who has been indicted for a crime can get out of it by getting on the good side of the whole point of this country is that no one person should have too much power. Like, to me, that's the whole point of a country. The king was somebody who had too much power.
Yep.
And we said, we're not going to do it that way. There were ferocious debates at the time of the founding over whether to even create a presidency. Because Jefferson was worried that if we had a president, it would turn into a king.
Yeah.
And they kind of hit a compromise where we created the president, but we took all these measures in the Constitution to make sure that that presidency didn't become too powerful. And this is like a part of the texture of our country. One of my favorite fun fact about Washington, D.C. is the Jefferson Memorial, the round domed columned structure with the statue of Jefferson right in the middle, has him perfectly aligned with the exact center line of the White House. So that if you're standing in the Blue Room, which is in the middle of the White House, looking south, you have there's a straight line.
He's watching you.
Because he's watching. He's watching the executive, saying he doesn't want the executive office, the president, to get out of it.
About
voyeurism
that.
right there.
Lincoln Memorial and Jefferson Memorial, right? Both liberal politicians. For the time?
Jefferson.
You think he was like extreme conservative?
kind of both, right? I mean, he was agrarian. He was definitely more kind of libertarian, if we were to try to map it onto today's
on your whole
terms.
joke right now.
Yeah,
But
Fucking idiot.
I was trying to shoehorn a joke.
Let's go with it. Let's go.
The joke is
Let's do it.
Come on, buddy. He's so right. He's so a mile away. He's so right. It's a stupid
we
joke.
saved the Second Avenue
It's a
subway
bad
after 50
joke.
years.
There was never a Second Avenue subway. No.
Okay, Pete, here's the actual question I have.
bad.
I hear a lot of what you're saying is tax the rich, they need to pay their taxes. I remember moving from Texas to California. Texas, I started paying taxes, and it was like, I remember I was working at Verizon Wireless doing a horrible job selling cell phones, and my commission would get taxed at like 40%. And I was like, okay, fair enough. But then I'm driving, the roads suck. The schools, from what I heard, sucked. New York, same thing. Very high taxes. There's no Second Avenue subway. Schools are horrible.
Right.
If you have any kind of money, it seems like you're sending your kids to private schools, or you live in such a rich neighborhood that the public school is basically a private school. What? The tax money seems like it gets wasted and doesn't get used wisely. So I have like an aversion to, they should pay their taxes, because my reaction is, I've seen what happens when people pay taxes.
I agree
Nothing
with
gets
that,
fixed.
what he said about California. I think what he said about California was
I'm not going to
pretty...
shit on one state or another, but
Good.
There is obviously a relationship between the results you see and your willingness to trust that there's anything you're getting out of your tax dollars.
My trust is very low.
Especially with
Americans'
California.
trust is very low, right? And if you look at, I know Democrats always like to point to Scandinavian countries, but I'm going to do it. One thing you notice about those countries, which do have a pretty high tax burden, but the reason there's also a higher sense among people that it's fair is that they get good results. They have good healthcare and good education. And that doesn't just happen because you put the money in. But if you put the money in and you do it right, then the public's going to be more trusting, right? That you're getting something out of those tax dollars.
I think it's easy to do when like every girl's hot.
This guy.
No, like, have you been to Scandinavia? It's like every girl's hot, right? So
You're asking the wrong guy.
Sorry, the dudes are hot there too. The dudes are good-looking guys. If you're into that look, I don't know if you're into that look. Ow, what's going on here? They're so good-looking that you're like, I'll spend 75%. Listen, this is a crazier take than building a fucking subway on 2nd Avenue. Who the hell's gonna use that, Akash Singh?
Oh, man.
What I'm trying to say is, if you go to Denmark, you go to Sweden.
Saying if you're good looking, there's going to be a higher perception of tax
You'll
fairness.
spend a little bit more. You know what I mean? It's something to look at.
Because you're just happy to be there.
You're happy to be there. Have you talked to Scandinavians when they travel abroad and what they see?
Can I get a real answer from this man? Where's some real fucking thing?
This is a real
You're asking
experience.
about
This is a
girls.
lived experience. I'm asking. I got
This is inefficiency.
dudes too. They're tall. They're handsome. They have facial hair. They're Vikings.
Where were we?
I'm just saying we
were getting to a real point.
Where were we?
It was
This got derailed like a Second Avenue subway.